January 2026, and is Iran about to experience a significant move forward in a people-powered revolution? People are saying this is the time for the people of Iran to finally overthrow the dictatorial Ayatollah regime that is basically shored up by the IRGC, which technically still has control of the country, since the Ayatollah gave them power basically back in June during the 12-day war with Israel. Give them power to basically run the affairs of the state while he went into hiding. And obviously he's come out of hiding since then, kind of. But they still hold the power basically. And he's basically, a puppet acting on behalf of the Supreme Council. And he's still the bad boogeyman villain at the top of the pyramid, if you want to look at it from how it looks in terms of optics. But it's really the IRGC, since they have all the guns and all the might to actually suppress any kind of protests. And that really is the question right now. Like, are they holding back because they actually fear what the United States and others might do in response if they start killing lots of innocent people? Have they not shut off the internet because they can't, or they don't want to be perceived in some bad way? Is the IRGC turning a new leaf? And are they going to want to represent the people in a better way, in a more equitable way, that gives, equal rights and democracy and freedom for all kinds of people? Yeah, my bet is on no. They're not doing this for good reasons. They're being very strategic about it. Having spoken with many people in Iran and many Iranians outside of Iran, it seems as though, as much as there is this momentum building, a lot of people are expecting this to take months, if not up to a year or more, for it to actually work. And the problem with that, as I've told you in many of my videos talking about this in recent times, days and weeks and months gone by, that a slow build momentum that lasts a long time is probably not going to work. It just gives the government and the IRGC, obviously, more time to basically combat this and let people power kind of fizzle, let the momentum die out as people get exhausted from going out on the streets. Even if a lot of this protests are met with no violence, the government is smart in doing that and letting people just air their grievances and not do anything in response, and letting the kind of protests die down by themselves. That said, there are people who are experts on this topic, who are Iranian analysts, some of whom live in Iran, some of whom live outside Iran, who have shown all kinds of statistics showing that despite a recent dip a few days ago, we're seeing now a steady increase, quite a spike even yesterday, in terms of the number of protests that are happening across the country and number of people showing up and everything else. But we're still far from even being at 1% of the country going out and making the necessary demands. And as you know, I've been very vocal about it since the military of Iran basically numbers about 1.3 to 1.8 million people, depending on how you count it. Law enforcement, military, paramilitary, IRGC, etc. The sheer number of people that are necessary to overrun that kind of force, to basically forcefully, swiftly, basically in one day, literally overrun all the government institutions and military bases that are necessary to be taken over, including headquarters, arsenals, etc., is on the order of 3 to 5 million people out of the 90 million people in Iran. So we're talking, a few percent of the people at the very least. 1% probably won't even cut it, okay? And that is kind of the problem that we have, right? 1% would be about 900,000 people. And some say that there's been up to 1 million people protesting. Others say it's frankly far fewer. Obviously, it's hard to tell from videos, even if you see tens of thousands of people marching in a street. Tens of thousands is nowhere near a million, let alone a few million. And we know there's not a few million yet. And we certainly know that they have not taken any kind of really radical or, significant steps necessary to overthrow the actual regime. Yes, they've taken over some government cities, and arguably you could say they've taken over a few towns without meeting any resistance from the police or the IRGC. But that doesn't mean that they're going to keep those cities in their power. Hello there, in the comments, I see you. It also doesn't mean that the IRGC itself won't go in and punish the police or anybody else that was in, that's a state official of any kind for not quelling the protests, right? We don't know. And again, like I said, it could be that it's their game to let these protests happen without any resistance, to show the people that, the government cares about you and letting you protest because we want you to have your voice heard by the government, and as long as you're peaceful, we welcome the protests. And that is easily one of their best strategies, if you ask me, to just let the people protest, and as long as they remain peaceful, let them keep doing it. And even if there are minor acts of violence, that they will basically just ignore it, or do the minimal amount of counter violence possible. But that said, we know that well over 1,000, probably easily over 2,000 people have been arrested so far, and many have been injured, in the order of hundreds at least. And we know that at least 27 people have died. Most of those have been protesters. A couple of them at least have been IRGC. So this is still very much on low flame, right? We're not at the point where the people of Iran have shown the momentum to be strong enough to overtake the power. That said, look, it's anecdotal, sure, but of the many people I've spoken with in and out of Iran who are Iranian, they do not want the Iranian government in place anymore. There is some percentage of people who do like the Iranian government. It is theorized that it's a very small percentage, but there is some percentage, obviously, because people make their living there. They're paid by the government, so they obviously want to keep getting paid. And it really depends on how sick and tired they are of working for a dictatorship, on whether or not they're going to actually turn their backs on that government and put themselves in jeopardy. Obviously, anybody who is an official, whether they're in the army, the police, or anything else, anybody who works for the government anyway and doesn't do what they're ordered to do is putting themselves directly at risk, far more than the average person who doesn't work for the government. For very obvious reasons, because they're known to the government, their ID numbers are known, their locations are known, everything about them is known, so it's easy to get them. And that is kind of the situation. And it's one of the reasons that for all the excitement in the air about seeing this government fall, especially so soon after Maduro was removed from Venezuela, where Iran itself has a lot of influence, right? And where they were literally, running Hezbollah camps and other Hezbollah criminal activity. I am yet to be on the side of, oh yeah, this is definitely happening. Like, I want it to definitely happen. I've wanted this for many, 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 many years and decades. I would love nothing more than if the Iranian people would get their freedom back and oust this awful regime that is literally oppressing them in the most brutal, barbaric ways. But, I'm also very realistic in saying that even though this time it may be different because of the economy and the internet, we've seen many attempts in the past where it was also different for other reasons, So, yes, I may not sound super optimistic, but it's for reasons. It's not random that I have this kind of skepticism. And I'm not a naysayer. I'm not negative on this revolt. I'm not saying, no, it definitely won't happen. I'm just saying you have to keep in perspective and recognize the incredible odds that the people of Iran have to overcome in order to do this. And to do that, they need to be motivated, and they need to motivate themselves to do it, because ultimately, this is their fight. You know, we want to support them as much as possible. I want to support them as much as possible. And yes, I want to be hopeful and optimistic about it, but I'm not going to, as I say, lose sleep over it, because we've seen too many of these false starts before. We've seen too many of these incredible opportunities basically get squashed by brutal force. And there is still no guarantee that that's not going to happen. You know, yes, there are lots of Starlink devices in Iran. So in theory, the people of Iran have internet, even if the government cuts off the regular internet lines. But it's hundreds of thousands out of 90 million people. It's not tens of millions of Starlink devices, right? And if the government wants to, even if Starlink continues to operate, the government, remember, can shut down telecommunications for the average person. And some people say, well, if they do that, then they'll shut down telecommunications for themselves. Not necessarily. They most probably still have control over switches that they can turn off civilian communications and keep open government communications, right? And at least temporarily, they can do that city by city, do awful things in any given city, oppress the people in that city without any communications bound around, you know, clean it up as much as possible, make it appear as though whatever they did was minimal, and then just go one city at a time. People are sending a lot of chat messages. Thank you for sending the chat messages. By all means, if you're in here, please do me the favor and like this video and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So, yeah, like I said, I am painfully aware of the reality of what Iran, what the government of Iran can actually do to actually shut off communications to the majority of people and prevent things like Starlink from being weaponized against them. Even though Starlink may continue to operate there, they do have control over the regular cell communications there. So it is a significant concern. I really hope that they will succeed in overthrowing this disgusting government led by Khamenei, who again is really at this point more of an old figurehead than anything else. And yeah, sure, he says things, he makes statements. He doesn't say anything without the approval of the Supreme Council. You need to know that. So it's the Ayatollahs on the Supreme Council that tell the Ayatollah in charge, supposedly, what they tell him what to say and what to do. And whether or not he will flee the country also is kind of a moot point, right? Whether he flees or not. Like, yeah, sure, the people of Iran want to get the guy and they want to, make him pay for his crimes. But he is not materially the person stopping the protests, right? It's the people with the guns, and that is the IRGC. And I really hope to God that the people find it in them to do what they have to do to overthrow those bastards as fast as possible, so that the people of Iran can be free, the dying can stop, and we can have peace and a better region and a better world. That's it for now, folks. Talk to you later. Peace. Shalom.